The snow fell hard on planet Veloria. It was not like snow on Earth. This snow was silver, and it shined under the pale light of 2 moons. The wind was cold and sharp. It cut through clothes like a knife. No human was supposed to be here. This was the border of Sector 7, the place where the Lycanary lived. But Claire Morgan was not like other humans. She walked alone through the frozen land. Her boots sank deep into the snow with every step. Her breath came out in white clouds. She wore a thick thermal suit, but even that could not stop the cold from reaching her bones. She had been walking for 3 days now. Her food was almost gone. Her water was frozen. But she did not stop. Claire was a xenobiologist. That meant she studied alien life forms. She had spent 10 years of her life learning about the Lycanary. They were a race of beings who could change their shape. They looked like wolves, but they could also take a form that looked almost human. They were tall and strong. Their eyes glowed like fire. Humans feared them. Governments wanted to capture them. Military leaders wanted to use them as weapons. But Claire knew the truth. She had watched them from far away for years. She had seen mothers caring for their young. She had seen fathers teaching their sons to hunt. She had seen elders telling stories around fires. The Lycanary were not monsters. They were people. They had families and traditions and love. That was why Claire had lost everything. 6 months ago, her bosses at the Terran Research Initiative had demanded her research. They wanted to find weaknesses in the Lycanary. They wanted to know how to kill them. Claire had refused. She had destroyed her files instead of handing them over. For that, they had taken away her job. They had taken away her home. They had called her a traitor to her own species. Now she was in exile. She had nowhere to go. So she walked north, toward the land of the creatures she had spent her life trying to protect. She did not know what she would find. She did not know if she would survive. But at least she would die free. The sun was setting when Claire heard the sound. At first, she thought it was the wind. But then she heard it again. It was high and full of pain. It was a cry. Something was hurt. Claire stopped walking. She listened carefully. The sound came from the east, down in a ravine about half a mile away. Every part of her body told her to keep walking. She was tired. She was cold. She had no energy to spare. But the cry came again, and this time it was weaker. She could not ignore it. Claire changed direction and walked toward the ravine. The ground was rocky and covered with ice. She slipped twice and almost fell. But she kept going. The cry was getting closer. When she reached the edge of the ravine, she looked down and her heart stopped. Below her was the wreckage of a ship. It was a Lycanary transport vessel. She recognized the design from her research. The ship had been shot down. Burn marks covered its hull. Pieces of metal were scattered across the snow. And among the wreckage, she saw bodies. Claire climbed down into the ravine. Her hands were shaking, and not just from the cold. She had never seen Lycanary up close before. Even in death, they were beautiful. Their fur was thick and silver. Their claws were long and sharp. They had died fighting. She could see the wounds on their bodies. There were 5 of them. 3 males and 2 females. All dead. The cry came again. Claire followed the sound to a piece of the broken ship. It was a section of the hull that had fallen and created a small shelter. She got down on her knees and looked inside. A pair of gray eyes looked back at her. It was a cub. A Lycanary cub, no bigger than a large dog. His fur was silver like the adults, but softer. He was covered in blood, but Claire could not tell if it was his own or from the others. He was shaking. He was scared. He was alone. Claire felt tears freeze on her cheeks. She reached out her hand slowly. The cub growled at her. It was a tiny sound, meant to be a warning but too weak to scare anyone. Claire did not pull back. She kept her hand steady and spoke in a soft voice. "It is okay," she said. "I am not going to hurt you. I am here to help." The cub looked at her with those gray eyes. Something in them changed. Maybe he could sense that she meant no harm. Maybe he was too tired to fight anymore. He stopped growling and let out a small whimper. Claire picked him up gently. He was so light, too light. He had not eaten in days. She could feel his ribs through his fur. She held him close to her chest and wrapped her thermal cloak around both of them. "I have got you," she whispered. "You are safe now." But even as she said the words, she knew they were not true. This was the border of Likanari territory. Someone had shot down this ship. That meant there were enemies nearby. Poachers most likely. Humans who hunted Likanari for profit. Likanari blood could be sold for millions of credits on the black market. It had healing powers that human scientists could not explain, and a Likanari cub was worth even more. Claire looked at the dead bodies around her. These warriors had died protecting this little one. They had given their lives so he could live. She could not let their sacrifice be for nothing. She started to climb out of the ravine. The cub pressed against her chest, seeking warmth. She could feel his heart beating fast against her own. "I am going to call you Ash," she said quietly, "because of your eyes. They look like ash from a fire." Ash made a small sound. It might have been agreement. It might have been exhaustion. Either way, Claire took it as a good sign. She reached the top of the ravine and looked north. The Likanari homeland was still many miles away. She had no food. She had little water. She had a wounded cub who needed care she could not give. But she also had something else. She had purpose. For the first time in months, Claire knew exactly what she needed to do. She needed to get this cub home. She needed to return him to his people. She needed to prove that not all humans were monsters. She started walking north. The wind was getting stronger. The temperature was dropping. Night was coming, and with it, even greater dangers. But Claire did not slow down. She held Ash close and kept moving. Somewhere behind her, she heard the sound of engines. Someone was coming. The engines grew louder behind her. Claire moved faster. Her legs burned. Her lungs ached from breathing the frozen air. But she did not stop. She could not stop. Ash was pressed against her chest, hidden under a thermal cloak. His small body was warm against hers. She looked back over her shoulder. In the distance, she could see lights. 3 vehicles were moving across the snow. They were ground skimmers, fast machines that floated just above the surface. They were coming straight toward her. Poachers. Claire knew she could not outrun them. The skimmers were too fast. But maybe she could hide. She looked around for any kind of shelter. There was nothing but flat snow and distant trees. The forest was still half a mile away. She would never make it in time, but she had to try. She started running. Her feet slipped on the ice. She fell once, twisting her ankle, but got up and kept going. Ash whimpered against her chest. She held him tighter. "Just hold on," she whispered. "We are almost there." The engines were getting closer. She could hear voices now, men shouting to each other. They had seen her. Claire pushed herself harder. The forest was getting closer. 300 meters. 200. 100. She reached the first trees just as the skimmers stopped behind her. She dove into the shadows and kept running. The trees were thick here. The skimmers could not follow, but the men could. She heard them getting off their vehicles. She heard boots hitting the snow. She heard laughter. "Come on out, little lady," a voice called. It was rough and cruel. "We just want the pup. Give him to us, and you can go free." Claire did not answer. She kept moving deeper into the forest. Her ankle was swelling. Every step hurt. But pain did not matter. Only Ash mattered. She found a fallen tree and crawled under it. The space was small and dark. She pressed herself into the shadows and covered Ash with her body. He seemed to understand the danger. He stayed perfectly still and silent. Footsteps approached. Claire held her breath. "She went this way," someone said. "I can see her tracks." "Spread out," the cruel voice ordered. "She cannot have gone far." "Find her." Claire heard the men moving through the forest. They were all around her. She could see their flashlights cutting through the darkness. One beam passed right over her hiding spot. She pressed herself deeper into the dirt. The light moved on. For an hour, she lay there in the cold and the dark. The men searched everywhere. They called out to her. They made threats. They made promises. But Claire did not move. She did not make a sound. Finally, the cruel voice spoke again. "Forget it. We will find her in the morning. She cannot survive the night out here anyway. Let us go back to camp." The footsteps faded. The engine started up again. The lights disappeared into the distance. Claire waited another hour before she moved. Her body was so cold she could barely feel her legs. When she crawled out from under the tree, she almost could not stand. But Ash was still warm against her chest. He was still alive. That was all that mattered. She leant deeper into the forest. She needed to find real shelter. The temperature was dropping fast. Without fire, she would freeze to death before morning. After an hour of walking, she found a small cave in the side of a hill. It was not big, but it was dry and out of the wind. She crawled inside and pulled Ash from her cloak. The cub looked up at her with his gray eyes. He was weak. He needed food. She had a few energy bars left in her pack. She broke one into small pieces and offered them to him. At first, Ash did not eat. He sniffed the food and turned away. Claire understood. This was not his natural diet, but it was all she had. "Please eat," she said softly. "I know it is not what you are used to, but you need strength." Ash looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he started to eat. Claire felt relief wash over her. She ate a few pieces herself, though her stomach was tight with fear. They slept together that night, curled up in the small cave. Claire woke many times to check on Ash. Each time, he was still breathing. Each time, she felt grateful. Morning came with pale gray light. Claire looked outside and saw that it was snowing again. The poachers would have trouble tracking her now, but so would she have trouble walking. She picked up Ash and started moving north again. For 3 days, they traveled through the forest. The poachers hunted them the whole time. Claire could hear their skimmers in the distance. Sometimes she saw their flashlights at night. They were searching for her, and they were getting closer. She set traps using her knowledge of the land. She dug pits and covered them with branches. She created false trails that led nowhere. She used every trick she had learned in her years of field research. But the poachers were good at what they did. They found her traps. They followed her real trail. They were closing in. On the 3rd night, Claire made a mistake. She was so tired she could barely see. She walked right into their camp. There were 6 of them. They sat around a fire, eating and laughing. When they saw her, they stood up with weapons in their hands. The leader walked toward her. He was a big man with a scar on his face. His eyes were cold and empty. "Well, well," he said. "Victor Kane always gets what he wants. You gave us a good chase, I admit. But it is over now. Give me the pup." Claire backed away. She held Ash tighter. "No." Victor laughed. "No? You think you have a choice?" He stepped closer. "Do you know how much a Lycanary cub is worth? More than you could ever imagine. His blood alone will make me rich. And once I sell him to the research labs, They will pay 10 times more. Claire felt sick. He is just a child. He is a product, Victor said. Nothing more. He reached for Ash. Claire turned and ran. She did not get far. 2 of the men caught her. They threw her to the ground. She curled around Ash, protecting him with her body. The men kicked her. They hit her. She felt ribs crack. She felt blood on her face. But she did not let go of the cub. Just kill her, one of the men said. Take the pup and be done with it. Victor shook his head. No, let her suffer. Let her freeze out here knowing she failed. He bent down and looked at her broken body. You cannot save him. You are just one human. What did you think you could do? They tried to take Ash from her arms. Claire held on with everything she had left. Her fingers were weak, but her will was strong. She screamed. She bit. She fought with the last of her strength. Finally, Victor grew tired of the struggle. He hit her hard across the head. The world went dark. When Claire woke, she was alone in the snow. The camp was gone. The poachers were gone, but Ash was still in her arms. They had not taken him. Maybe they thought she was dead. Maybe they decided to come back later. She did not know. She did not care. He was still with her. She tried to stand but could not. Her body was broken. She could feel blood freezing on her skin. Every breath was agony, but she could still crawl. The forest ended 100 meters ahead. Beyond it, she could see open ground, and in the far distance, the dark shape of mountains. Lycanary territory. If she could just get there, someone might find Ash. Someone might save him. Claire started to crawl. Inch by inch. Foot by foot. She dragged herself through the snow with one arm while holding Ash with the other. Her vision was fading. Her thoughts were getting confused, but she kept moving. She crawled all through the night. She crawled until her arms gave out. She crawled until she could not crawl anymore. Finally, at the edge of a sacred forest, Claire Morgan stopped. She had nothing left. Her body was dying. She knew this was the end. She wrapped herself around Ash one last time. She wanted him to be warm when they found him. She wanted him to know he was loved. Someone will come, she whispered. Someone will find you. You will be okay. Her eyes closed. The snow fell gently around them, and Claire let go of everything except the cub in her arms. Claire opened her eyes and saw warmth that it took her a long time to understand what she was seeing. There was a stone ceiling above her. There were soft furs beneath her. There was golden light coming from somewhere she could not see. And there was warmth. Real warmth everywhere, sinking into her bones. She was not dead. The thought confused her. She should be dead. She remembered the snow and the blood and the endless crawling. She remembered holding Ash against her chest as her life slipped away. She remembered closing her eyes and thinking it was the end, but she was not dead. She was warm and alive and lying in a bed that was softer than anything she had ever felt. Something moved beside her. Claire turned her head slowly. Her neck hurt. Everything hurt. But the pain was distant, like it belonged to someone else. Ash was lying next to her. He was curled up in a ball of silver fur, his nose tucked under his tail. When he felt her move, he looked up. His gray eyes met hers. His tail began to wag. Claire smiled. It hurt to smile, but she did it anyway. Hey there, she whispered. You made it. Ash made a small happy sound and pressed closer to her. Claire lifted her hand and touched his fur. It was soft and clean. Someone had taken care of him. Someone had kept him safe. A deep voice spoke from the shadows. You should be dead. Claire turned her head the other way. The movement sent pain shooting through her body, but she forced herself to focus. A man was sitting in a chair beside her bed. No, not a man. a Lycanari in his human form. He was massive, at least 7 feet tall, with broad shoulders and arms like tree trunks. His hair was silver white and fell past his shoulders. His skin was pale with strange markings that seemed to move in the light, but it was his eyes that held her attention. They were gold, bright gold, like coins or fire or the heart of a sun. They looked at her with an expression she could not read. Claire knew who this must be. There was only one Lycanari with eyes like that. Only one who would sit in such a chair with such authority. "The Alpha King," she said. Her voice was rough from days of not speaking. "Nathan Vorth," he said. "Yes." He leaned forward slightly. "And you are Claire Morgan, former xenobiologist of the Terran Research Initiative, exiled from human society for refusing to hand over your research on my people. Currently wanted by the Colonial Authority for destruction of government property." Claire blinked. "You know who I am? We found your identification in your pack. We also found research notes. Years of observations about Lycanari culture and society." His golden eyes narrowed. "You have been watching my people for a long time." "I was studying you," Claire said. "Not to hurt you, to understand you, to prove that you are not the monsters humans think you are. And yet you destroyed your own research, because they wanted to use it against you." Claire tried to sit up but could not. Her body was too weak. "They wanted to find ways to kill you. I would not let that happen." Nathan said nothing for a long moment. He just looked at her with those golden eyes. Claire felt like he was looking inside her, reading her thoughts, judging her soul. Finally, he spoke again. "Why did you save the cub?" Claire looked at Ash. He was watching her with those gray eyes, waiting for her answer. She thought about the question. It was a simple question, but the answer was not simple at all. "Because he needed saving," she said at last. "Because I found him alone and hurt and scared. Because the people who should have protected him were dead. Because I was the only one who could help." "You could have left him," Nathan said. "You could have walked away and saved yourself." "No." Claire shook her head slightly. "I could not." "Why?" "Because that is not who I am." She met his eyes without fear. "I know what humans have done to your people. I know about the hunting and the killing and the selling of children. I cannot undo any of that. But I can choose to be different. I can choose to help instead of hurt. I can choose to protect instead of destroy." Nathan was silent. He looked at her for a long time, and Claire saw something shift in his expression. The hardness softened, just a little. The suspicion faded, just a little. Then he did something that shocked her. He stood up from his chair, walked to her bedside, and knelt down. The Alpha King of the Lycanari Dominion, ruler of 100,000 warriors, knelt beside the bed of a broken human woman. "Among my people," he said, "there is no greater honor than protecting the young. Parents give their lives for their children. Warriors give their lives for the cubs of the pack. It is the most sacred duty we know." He reached out and touched her hand gently. His skin was warm against hers. "You are not Lycanari," he said. "You are human, a member of the species that has caused us more pain than any other. And yet you did what many of my own people could not. You saved the child of our blood. You carried him through impossible danger. You gave everything you had and nearly died in the attempt." Claire felt tears in her eyes. She did not know why. She had not cried in years. "That makes you pack," Nathan said. "Not by blood, but by action. By sacrifice. By choice. In the eyes of my people, you are one of us now." Claire could not speak. She did not have words for what she was feeling. This was more than she had ever hoped for. More than she had ever dreamed. "I do not know what to say," she finally managed. "You do not have to say anything," Nathan said. He stood up and looked down at her. "Rest now. Heal. When you are strong, we will talk more. There is much to discuss." He turned to leave, but Claire called out to him. Wait, she took a breath. The poachers. The men who killed your people and hunted me. They are still out there. Their leader is named Victor Kane. He will not stop. He will come back for Ash. Nathan's expression changed. The softness disappeared. His eyes glowed brighter, and for a moment, Claire saw the predator beneath the king. Victor Kane, he repeated. The name sounded like a death sentence in his mouth. I know this name. He has killed many of my people over the years. He has sold our children to laboratories and research centers. He is dangerous, Claire said. He was dangerous, Nathan said. Now he is prey. He walked toward the door. Before he left, he looked back at her one more time. Heal quickly, Claire Morgan. You have earned a place in my house. But there is work to be done. The men who hurt you and murdered my family will face justice. And when they do, I want you to see it. Then he was gone. Claire lay back against the soft furs. Ash curled up against her side again, his warm body pressed close. She put her arm around him and held him tight. She was safe. Ash was safe. And for the first time in a very long time, Claire felt like she might have found a place where she belonged. She closed her eyes and let sleep take her. Outside the window, the twin suns shone bright over the mountain fortress. Somewhere in the distance, HFY warriors were already gathering. The hunt for Victor Kane had begun, and this time the predators would become the prey. Nathan Vorath stood on the balcony of his fortress and looked out at the storm. The wind howled across the mountains. Snow fell in thick curtains from a dark sky. It was the worst storm of the season, and it showed no signs of stopping. But Nathan did not feel the cold. His blood ran hot. His anger burned inside him like a fire that would not die. 3 days ago, his scouts had found the wreckage of a transport ship at the southern border. 5 HFY warriors were dead. Among them was Kira, his cousin, and her mate Devon. They had been traveling with their young son Ash to a gathering of the clans. Now they were gone, murdered by human weapons, and the child was missing. Nathan gripped a stone railing, so hard it cracked under his fingers. He was the Alpha King of the HFY Dominion. He ruled over 100,000 of his people. He had led them through wars and famines and disasters. He was the strongest of them all, but he had not been able to protect his own family. His generals wanted to attack the human settlements. They wanted revenge. They wanted blood. Nathan understood their anger. He felt it too, but he was not a fool. Starting a war would only bring more death. His people had suffered enough. Still, he would find the ones who did this. He would track them to the ends of the planet if he had to. And when he found them, they would know what it meant to anger an Alpha King. A knock came at his door. Nathan did not turn around. Enter. One of his warriors stepped inside. His name was Cole, and he had served Nathan for 20 years. He was loyal and brave, and one of the few men Nathan truly trusted. My king, Cole said, the scouts have returned. They found something at the edge of the sacred forest. Nathan turned. What did they find? Cole hesitated. That was unusual. Cole was not a man who hesitated. A human, he said. A human woman. She's barely alive. Nathan felt his anger rise. A human? On our lands? Kill her and be done with it. My king, there is more. Cole stepped forward. She was carrying a HFY cub. The scouts believe it is the child of Kira and Devon. They believe it is Ash. Nathan froze. For a long moment, he did not speak. Could not speak. His mind was trying to understand what Cole was telling him. Ash is alive? Yes, my king. The human woman protected him with her own body. She crawled through the snow for miles, even though she was dying. The scouts say they have never seen such a thing. Nathan moved past Cole and walked out of the room. He moved fast, his long legs carrying him through the stone halls of his fortress. Warriors and servants stepped out of his way. They knew better than to block the path of their king. He reached the medical wing in minutes. 2 healers stood outside the door, their faces worried. When they saw Nathan, they bowed low. "Where's the child?" Nathan demanded. "Inside, my king. He's weak, but he will live." The woman kept him warm. She saved his life. Nathan pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was warm and filled with soft light. On a small bed in the corner, wrapped in thick furs, was a silver cub with gray eyes. Ash looked up at his king and made a small sound of recognition. Nathan went to him. He knelt beside the bed and touched the cub gently on the head. Ash pressed against his hand, seeking comfort. Nathan felt something tight in his chest begin to loosen. The boy was alive. Against all odds, the boy was alive. Then he turned to look at the other bed. The human woman lay on her back, barely breathing. Her face was bruised and swollen. Her body was covered in bandages that were already stained with blood. The healers had done what they could, but Nathan could see the truth. She was dying. Her wounds were too severe. Her body was too broken. He walked to her bedside and looked down at her. She was small, dishuman, fragile like all her kind. Her hair was dark and matted with ice. Her skin was pale as snow. She looked like she might break if he touched her. And yet she had done what 5 Lakanari warriors could not. She had kept Ash alive. She had carried him through the frozen wild for days. She had fought off attackers and crawled through the snow with broken bones. She had given everything she had and then given more. Nathan did not understand. Humans were weak. Humans were cruel. Humans had murdered his people for generations. They hunted Lakanari like animals. They sold their blood and their children. They were the enemy. But this woman had saved his cousin's son. He sat down in a chair beside her bed. He did not know why. He should leave. He should let her die. She was human. She was nothing to him, but he did not leave. Hours passed. The storm raged outside. Nathan sat and watched the human woman fight for every breath. Her chest rose and fell in shallow movements. Sometimes she made sounds of pain. Sometimes she called out words he did not understand. Once she said a name. Ash. Nathan looked at the cub. Ash had climbed off his bed and was now lying next to the woman, his small body pressed against her side. He was keeping her warm, just as she had kept him warm. Something changed in Nathan then. He did not have words for it. It was like a door opening in his mind, or a light turning on in a dark room. He looked at this dying human and saw something he had never seen before. Courage. Not the courage of warriors with swords and armor. Not the courage of kings with armies at their command. This was a different kind of courage. The courage of someone who had nothing and gave everything anyway. He called for his healers. They came quickly, fear on their faces. The Alpha King had never taken such interest in a patient before. "Save her," Nathan said. The healers exchanged looks. "My king, we have done all we can. Her wounds are too severe. She will not last the night. Then do more." Nathan stood up, and his eyes glowed golden with power. "Use the sacred waters. Use the healing stones. Use whatever you must. This woman saved the last living member of my cousin's family. She will not die in my house. Do you understand?" The healers bowed. "Yes, my king." They got to work. Nathan watched as they brought out medicines and tools that were normally reserved for Lakanari royalty. They bathed her wounds in water from the sacred springs. They placed healing stones on her chest to strengthen her heart. They wrapped her in cloths soaked with herbs that had been blessed by the elder shamans. All through the night they worked. And Nathan stayed. As dawn approached, the woman's breathing grew stronger. Her color improved. The lines of pain on her face began to soften. The healers stepped back, amazed at what they had done. "She will live," they said. "It is a miracle." Nathan said nothing. He just looked at the human woman who should have been dead, who should have been his enemy, who had done the impossible for a child not her own. He did not know who she was. He did not know why she had done what she did. But he was going to find out. When she woke, he would have questions. And he would not leave until he had answers. But for now, he let her sleep. She had earned that much. She had earned far more than that. Outside, the storm finally ended. The twin suns rose over the mountains, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink. A new day was beginning, and something new was beginning inside Nathan Vareth too. He did not know what it was yet, but he could feel it growing, like a seed, taking root in hard ground. He looked at the sleeping woman one more time. Then he settled back in his chair and waited. 3 weeks passed. Claire healed slowly but steadily. The Lycanary medicines were more powerful than anything human science had created. Her broken ribs mended. Her bruises faded. The cuts and scrapes on her body closed and left no scars. By the end of the 2nd week, she could walk again. By the end of the 3rd, she was almost as strong as she had been before. Ash never left her side. He slept in her room every night, curled up at the foot of her bed. He followed her through the fortress during the day, his small paws clicking on the stone floors. The other Lycanary looked at them with wonder. They had never seen a human and a cub bond so closely. Claire learned much about the Lycanary during those weeks. She learned their language, which was difficult but beautiful. She learned their customs and their history. She learned about the great wars they had fought and the peace they had worked so hard to build. And she learned about Nathan. The Alpha King was a mystery to his own people. He was strong and fierce, the greatest warrior of his generation. He had led his people through terrible times. He had never lost a battle. But he was also alone. His parents had died when he was young. He had no brothers or sisters. He had never taken a mate. "He carries too much weight," one of the healers told Claire. "He feels responsible for every Lycanary life. Every death is his failure. Every tragedy is his burden." Claire understood that feeling. She had felt it too, back when she was still working as a scientist. Every time humans hurt the Lycanary, she had felt guilty, as if she could have done more, as if she should have done more. On the day Victor Kane was captured, Nathan came to find her. Claire was sitting in the garden of the fortress, watching Ash play in the snow. The cub was getting stronger every day. He ran and jumped and rolled in the white powder, his gray eyes bright with joy. He was recovering, not just from his physical wounds, but from the trauma of losing his parents. Claire knew that pain would never fully heal. But at least he was not facing it alone. Claire Morgan. She turned and saw Nathan approaching. He was dressed in simple clothes today, not the formal robes of a king. His silver hair was loose around his shoulders. He looked almost like an ordinary person. Almost. Those golden eyes would never let anyone forget who he really was. "My king," Claire said, starting to rise. "Sit." He gestured for her to stay where she was. Then he sat down beside her on the stone bench. For a long moment, they watched Ash play together in silence. "We found Victor Kane," Nathan finally said. Claire felt her heart speed up. "Is he dead?" "Not yet. I wanted you to be there when we passed judgment." Nathan turned to look at her. "You have that right. He hurt you. He tried to kill you. He would have sold Ash to the highest bidder." Claire thought about this. She thought about Victor's cruel eyes and his cold laugh. She thought about the pain and fear of those 3 days in the snow. She thought about how close she had come to dying. I do not want to see him die, she said slowly. I do not want that memory. Nathan nodded. I understand. Many of my people feel the same way. They want justice, but they do not want to carry the weight of watching someone die. What will happen to him? He will face the judgment of the clans. The families of those he has killed will speak. The elders will decide his fate. Nathan's voice was hard. He will not survive, but his death will be clean and quick. We are not like humans. We do not torture. We do not make suffering into a show. Claire nodded. That was enough for her. Victor would pay for what he had done. That was all she needed to know. They sat in silence again. Ash had noticed Nathan and came running over. He jumped up on the bench between them and demanded attention from both. Nathan laughed, a deep, warm sound that surprised Claire. She had never heard him laugh before. He likes you, Nathan said. He saved my life as much as I saved his, Claire said. When I was crawling through the snow, ready to give up, he kept me going. I could not let him down. Nathan looked at her with those golden eyes. Something in them was different today, softer, more open. I have been thinking, he said, about what happens next. Claire waited. My people have never trusted humans. We have never had reason to. But you have shown me that not all humans are our enemies. There are some who want peace. Some who want understanding. He paused. I believe you can help us build that. What do you mean? I want you to be our ambassador. A bridge between our peoples. You know us better than any human alive. You understand our ways. You speak our language. And you have earned our trust in a way no one else ever has. Claire stared at him. This was more than she had ever imagined. More than she had ever hoped for. I am an exile, she said. The human governments consider me a traitor. Then stay with us. Live here, in our lands. Help us build a new future. Nathan reached out and took her hand. His touch was gentle, despite his great strength. Claire, I am not only asking this for my people. I am asking for myself. Claire felt her heart beating faster. What do you mean? Nathan was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she had ever heard it. Among my people, there is a bond called the soul mark. It is rare. It cannot be forced or chosen. It simply happens, like lightning or the rising of the sun. When a Lycanary finds their true mate, they feel it in their very soul. A connection that cannot be broken. A love that cannot be denied. Claire could barely breathe. Are you saying? I felt it the moment I found you in the snow. Nathan looked into her eyes. I did not understand it then. You were dying. You were human. Everything in my experience told me to walk away. But I could not. Something held me there. Something made me fight for your life as hard as I have ever fought for anything. He lifted her hand and pressed it against his chest. Beneath her palm, she could feel his heart beating, strong and steady. You are not just packed to me, Claire Morgan. You are mine, and I am yours, if you will have me. Claire looked at this powerful king who had knelt beside her bed, who had saved her life with sacred medicines, who had hunted down the man who tried to kill her, who now sat beside her in a garden, holding her hand and opening his heart. I came to this planet to prove that humans and Lycanary could understand each other, she said softly. I never expected to fall in love with one. Nathan smiled. It transformed his entire face. The hard warrior was gone. In his place was a man who had finally found what he was looking for. Then let us build a new world together, he said Dot, and they did Dot in the years that followed. Claire became the first human ambassador to the Lycanary Dominion. She traveled between human and Lycanary settlements, teaching each side about the other. She helped negotiate peace treaties. She stopped conflicts before they could start. She showed both peoples that understanding was possible. Nathan stood beside her through all of it. They married in a ceremony that combined human and Likanari traditions. Their bond grew stronger every day, proof that love could cross any boundary. And Ash grew up strong and proud in their house. He became a leader of his people, known for his wisdom and his compassion. He always told the story of the human woman who had found him in the snow, the woman who had given everything to protect him, the woman who had changed the fate of two species by choosing love over fear. Whenever Ash told the story, he ended it the same way. "My mother was like an Ari," he would say. "She died protecting me. But I was blessed with a second mother, a human who found me when I was lost. She carried me through the dark. She kept me warm when I was cold. She gave everything she had and asked nothing in return. That is the lesson of my life. Love does not care about species or blood or borders. Love is an action. It is a choice. It is what we do for each other when everything is lost. Claire Morgan taught me that, and I will never forget." Far across the galaxy, on a planet of silver snow and twin suns, a human woman and a Likanari king watched the moons rise from their balcony. Between them sat a young wolf with gray eyes. No longer a cub, but a leader in his own right. They were a family, strange and unexpected and perfect, and they had built a world where no one had to be afraid anymore. The end.